Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that helps to promote my channel. I appreciate that. Leave a comment too if you'd like. I like to hear your input. Today I'm going to do, I have this great big rectangular faceted stone that was given to me, and it's yellow, and I'm not sure what it is. It could very well be synthetic, but it may just be a real light citrine. I'm not sure. So in the comments, tell me what you think it is. But either way, it's pretty, and I'm going to make a great big cocktail ring out of it. So I think I'm going to try to do a slightly different setting than I've ever done before. So it'll be kind of a fun experiment. And it should sit up nice and high and have lots of exposure to light. So it should be kind of a stunner, I think. If I can pull this off, we'll try. Before we get started, I need to thank some people. I wanted to specifically thank Inga V for signing up. Thank you, Inga. I appreciate you joining my Patreon. And thank you to all my other patrons over there who've made it such a nice community. I appreciate not only that, but I appreciate your financial contributions as well. The other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 9,800, which is getting closer and closer to 10,000. So thank you for that. Thank you not only for the kind comments that you leave, but also the little contributions like buying me a coffee and super thanks. Those kind of things really help me with supplies as I run through quite a few supplies doing this 3 times a week. So thank you for that. That keeps me running here. So with those things being said, let's get started on this project. So these are a couple of the cover types for my design idea books. My wife had kind of fun with some photoshopping on my face on this one, but there's other designs too, as well as one that has the pickle time kind of motif going on. I like these. In recent years, to get a better outcome, I started sketching things out in advance. It not only gives me a guide to follow, a kind of a template to measure things with, it helps me keep things more symmetrical because I can't. Drawing is not my strongest suit. So this is a pretty big stone. It's 22 by 17. I'll show you what it looks like. It's this one here. For all I know, it could be a morganite or something like that, or not a morganite, a heliodor, or a citrine, or a piece of glass, or some other synthetic. It doesn't look sparkly enough to be a CZ, so I'm not sure. If you know what it is, leave me a comment. I'm curious to see if anybody can give me some help with this one. It's pretty though, and I think I'm going to do a kind of a big setting where it sits up. So I'm going to create a basket setting that kind of has a little zigzag going down it. So this will be the horizontal side like that. This will be this side over here. It's going to sit like this in a band that has a little gap there on either side. At least that's what I'm envisioning, unless I change plans while we're doing this. So it should make for a great big bold ring that sits up nice and high. And that, with something like this, you want it to get a lot of light so it just really dazzles the eye, which I think it will with this one. So let's see if we can pull this off. A couple of things about what I do here. If you've never been to my channel, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, and I use a liquid flux called My-T-Flux, which I spray on. And I'm probably going to need a magnesia block today to do this, and this is probably going to be kind of an advanced project. So if you're new to this, this might not be the best project to start with. In fact, I know it's not. You should try with something a little simpler first. So check out my playlist page and you can find some beginner projects there. As far as materials go, I'm going to use, I think for the bottom here, I went ahead and I made part of it just to see. This is going to be the bottom platform. I took some 12 gauge square wire I had and I flattened it out in my rolling mill. You could just as easily pound it flat if you can do that kind of consistently. I made it until it was about 0.036 inches thick, or almost a millimeter, and that's going to be our platform on the bottom. I think up here I'm probably going to use either 14 or 16 gauge square to create that little platform there. This is probably going to be 16 gauge round. These are definitely going to be 16 gauge round. I pulled some and I cut some pieces of that already. So yeah, we'll be creating this prong setting, then mounting it on this band after we create the band. The way that I got this made was, it's actually got a solder joint going right here right here, and right there. Because I used my little miter vise jig in order to get some nice 45-degree angles. These are kind of a handy tool to have if you don't have one of those. Better than hand eyeballing it. Okay, so that's going to be the bottom for here. And I think, like I said, I'm going to use 16 gauge round wire to be these prongs that go up. And what you can't see on this drawing here, though, is I'm going to have 8 prongs. I'm not going to have 4. I'm going to have 2 on each corner like this, so I get a nice, good grab on things. And I think the best way to do that is I'm going to create a little cage. Like, I'll show you what I did on these ones. I'm making another contract piece for somebody. And to put little prongs on top of a ring like this, I've created a little X, and then I soldered them down. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to have a double X. So I need to figure out a way to get these all soldered together nicely so that I can bend them down and get them in the right spots on this piece. This is going to be where one of the parts where I use a magnesia block. I took my magnesia block out and I took it on the driveway and I scraped it flat because it was getting pretty bumpy. I'm going to need to buy some new ones of these pretty soon. They're great for being able to push stuff into. However, they break down pretty quickly. So here's my thought. Let's push that in there. Put these two like this. Solder those on there. And then we'll cross these two like that. And see how that works. My torch is a Smith acetylene air torch. And it's called the Silversmith model. I've been using this torch for a really long time. And it's a good torch and I like it. So sponsor me, Smith. Alright, so I have a few pieces of little pieces of hard solder on the soldering pad here. I do something called pick soldering a lot, which is really helpful when you're doing delicate soldering operations. It's if you want to see a video about it, I'll put a link up there for you. It's one of those things that's taken me to a different level as far as making stuff. It allows you to pretty precisely place a piece of solder somewhere. Make sure those were both kind of attached to that. Should be able to just line these two up this way now. Well, this one's got a little bit of a slope since I sanded it down on the driveway. I may need to put a teep in there or something. There's one. We would like to get the ends of these to sit nicely on top of those corners. So I can kind of get an idea about where I'm going to want to bend these downwards. So now I'm going to have to start steering them where I want them to go. I think these guys aren't too far off, but these guys are quite a bit off. So we're going to have to do a little bit of, because I did it at a kind of a 90-degree angle. have to bend them a little bit inwards like this. Now comes the fine tuning, where you have to kind of play with where they all connect, because I want them to kind of connect right on top of each of the corners here. So I need to get them to where they're kind of where I want them to be. It may be easiest to solder like these four, and then bend these ones in to be in contact, and then solder the other ones. So I might do that first that way. So let's see if we can get that to solder. There's actually a little bit of solder on the corners from when I soldered this base together. However, I'm going to have some extra so I can make sure to get a good solid solder joint there. Pick up a little bit of solder. Trick on this one is the bottom piece is going to be harder to get up to temperature than these wires, and so I'm going to try and kind of keep the heat focused down there. Now it should be fairly easy to get these other ones positioned. These ones aren't quite perfect, but I think I'm going to live with it. Double check all of our solder joints, make sure everything's stout. Because I'm going to cut these off now. Maybe kind of like that, further down. I think for this part up here, that's going to go underneath the stone for the girdle to rest on, I think I want like some flattened 14 gauge. So I'm going to flatten a little bit of 14 gauge in the rolling mill, and then I'll be right back. So I flattened the square wire just a skosh to make it a little bit thinner than that dimension, and then I made it into a square, and I filed a little notch at each corner, but I made it so that it would rest right about there on it, so that it gives it some room for the girdle of the stone to sit on that. And I will also, once this is soldered on the corners, I've already soldered it here to make sure everything was all square. I'll solder the corners to reinforce them, and then I'm going to flare those outwards a little bit so that I can attach them on the insides of this here. I think I'm going to have to remake this piece a little bit bigger so that it rides a little bit higher on this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to need to go make some more square wire that's thin like this. So I'll be back. I want it to just be slightly bigger, so I never like to put the solder joint on a corner because it makes that corner look different. So let's do this, but I got to remember I got to make it just a little bit bigger, like maybe fit right around this one. So I'm going to go ahead and corner my bastard file just a skosh of a notch there. Should be able to bend that inwards so you get a little bit sharper bend. Each of the opposite sides to be exactly the same would be ideal. Yeah, right in there. Should be pretty close. That's where I'll cut it off and file it down a little bit. Alright, I'm going to get this guy soldered, and then we'll worry about the other angles a little bit. Play with them slightly to get them to where they look good. I should set a little bit higher once I flare it outwards. That should help, I think. It'll also fit in here a little better. Yeah, it's a little more manageable. Okay, so I'm going to solder these. Well, maybe I can flare them a little before I put the solder in there, just if I do it real carefully. The metal should have enough give to be able to do just a little bit. I think the tricky part on this is going to be getting it square with the bottom piece. Maybe 7? Let's call it 7. So I'm continuing these marks around to the inside. So I'm going to try and file just with my flat edge file here. Just a little bit of a stop there. Trying to get those as consistent as possible. So they're all about the same distance apart. That's not too bad. So, what do you say we push this into the magnesia block? Let's see if we can get it all soldered together. This. Everything's touching. I don't think anything can drop, really. Just to be safe, though, let's use a T-pin or two to support it, like this. Hopefully that'll just give us a little bit extra support, so nothing. I don't think it'll move, but if it does, that should help. So let's cut a whole bunch of little pieces of solder, and I'm going to pick solder on each corner. should work once I do some cleaning up and a little bit of filing at the base of these. So that looks like that'll work. Now, I was going to have some decorations on the sides of these. Okay, so let's see, I had a little bit of that 16 gauge wire left. I made 4 V's. When in doubt, jump in and just try something. Do a little bit of a file there too. Can't see what I'm doing very well, can you? So the question is, how do I keep all this other stuff together? I think first off, it might not be a bad idea to sweat a little bit of solder to each one of these ends in the middle there. And let's cut this one off to be about the same. So what I think I'm going to do, I push this all the way down to where the prongs are pretty much buried all the way in, and I have the little base that the girdle of the stone will kind of sit above, and that is right flush with the surface, so I should be able to hopefully position these things so that nothing comes off. But let's put a little bit of solder on the ends and the middle of each of these. Did I already do the ends of this one? I don't think I did. So hopefully you can see what I did there. If I can just keep that in place, that one should be all right. That only took like 20 minutes. It's just in case I need some extra. There should be enough on there to solder to it. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Flux it, and then I'll move it up into position with the tweezers as it's flowing, hopefully. I was going to do them on the end too, but I don't think so. This is pretty hard to do, so I don't want to ruin what I created already. I think that's going to be it, because I don't want to risk messing it up. So now we need to make the band, which should be relatively straightforward. The only part that's going to be hard is attaching attaching it to the sides of this. So I'm going to get a little prep done and then I'll be right back. Alright, I did some thinking and some figuring out with this 14 gauge wire, and I decided to shape it like this so that it would attach right in the center of those, and then I can round it down. However, I also want just to have a little see-through thing on either side like that, because I think that looks pretty cool. I had these figured out pretty close. Well, solder them on kind of like that, and then we'll see if we can figure out a way to attach it to this. That looks a little better. Still have plenty of solder over there, so let's give that a go. That looks pretty good. I think, like before, I'm going to use a couple of T-pins to keep it from moving too much. Let's see if I can find another one that I haven't destroyed. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and try and solder that. I'm going to cut myself some fresh solder. The piece that has the most mass is the piece that's stuck into the pad here. I think I got them all. I'll take these down. Get everything straightened up. Everything pickled and cleaned up, and then we'll set a stone. Very exciting. Okay, so I'll be back after this is all cleaned up and I've got it kind of pre-polished and everything, or actually polished, and then I'll show you the final result when we set it. So. Okay, I've got everything all kind of polished up. I've got the stone sitting in there, and I kind of got these prongs to be, you know, placed symmetrically kind of at the corners of each of these flat sides on each corner of the stone. I'm just going to bend them in carefully. Use your pliers or whatever. So, a lot of people use particular tools that are just for this. I've found that I can do just fine with these. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It just means that's the way I do it. I spent a little time getting these kind of pointed in the correct direction on each corner. And midway down the girdle facets, which is this, well, it's actually got one big facet mostly all the way around, but the ones that are between the girdle and the crown, or the girdle and the table facet up on top here. So about midway up that, that's about where I cut those off. Last step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle file and kind of narrow these out, and then I'll use my rotary tool with a blue silicone polishing wheel, which is one of the finer ones, to kind of smooth it out. Sometimes I take these to a point, other times I keep them kind of rounded. I think I might keep this one kind of rounded. But I think that's gonna make for a pretty photogenic ring. So I'll take some better pictures and put it at the end of the video. Okay, well that was the Mystery Stone cocktail ring. I hope you enjoyed that and got something from it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That really helps out my channel a lot. Also, check out my playlist page. I'm getting close to 300 videos now, so if you want to find a particular thing, it might be helpful if you go to the playlist page, because I've split it into various categories like beginning, intermediate, advanced kinds of projects. Also things like rings, pendants, different art periods that they kind of emulate. So those things help. Those things make it a little bit easier to navigate my channel. So if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and tell your friends. The other thing is, check out the video description down below if you want to become more of a supporter of the channel. There's some important links there, including my Buy Me a Coffee link, which I talked about earlier, the merch store where you can get those nice design idea books. There's a link to my website if you need to get yourself a present, like some nice jewelry that I've made. There's also a link to my Patreon stuff if you want to check out what's going on over there. So, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care. Happy silversmithing.